farmer decided he wanted to go to town and watch a movie. The ticket agent asked, "Sir, what's that on your shoulder?" The old farmer said, "That's my pet rooster, Chuck. Wherever I go, Chuck goes." "I'm sorry, sir," said the ticket agent. "We can't allow animals in the theatre." The old farmer went around the corner and stuffed Chuck down his overalls. Then he returned to the booth, bought a ticket, and entered the theatre. He sat down next to two old widows named Mildred and Mule. The movie started, and the rooster began to squirm. The old farmer unbuttoned his fly so Chuck could stick his head out and watch the film. "Marge," whispered Mildred. "What?" said Marge. "I think the guy next to me is a pervert," Marge asked. "What makes you think so?" "He undid his pants and he has his thing out," whispered Mildred. "Well, don't worry about it," said Marge. "At our age, we've seen 'em all." "I thought so too," said Mildred. "But this one's eating my popcorn." In a court trial in a small town in Nebraska, the prosecutor called his first witness, an elderly grandma, to the stand. He walked up to her and asked, "Mrs. Williams, do you know who I am?" She answered, "Of course I know who you are, Mr. Rawley. I've known you since you were a little boy, and honestly, you're a disappointment. You lie, you cheat on your wife, you manipulate people and talk behind their back. You think you're some kind of big shot, but if you had half a brain, you'd realize that you'll never amount to anything but a mediocre pencil pusher." "Oh, I know who you are all right." The prosecutor had his jaw on the floor. Shocked and looking to deflect the attention, he pointed across the room and asked, "Mrs. Williams, do you know who the defense attorney is?" She replied, "Of course I do. I've known Mr. Carbuncle ever since he was a child. He's a lazy bigot who has a problem with alcohol abuse. He is unable to maintain a normal relationship with anyone and is one of the worst lawyers in the county. On top of that, he cheated on his wife with 3 different women, one of which was your wife. Yes, I know exactly who he is." The defense attorney looked like he was about to have a stroke. The judge ordered the prosecutor and the defense attorney to approach and whispered to them in a low but frantic voice, "If any of you brats ask her if she knows who I am, then I'll put both of you behind bars for life." Aging Mildred was a 93-year-old woman who was particularly despondent over the recent death of her husband Eric. She decided that she would just kill herself and join him in death, thinking that it would be best to get it over with quickly. She took out Eric's old army pistol and made the decision to shoot herself in the heart since it was so badly broken in the first place. Not wanting to miss the vital organ and become a vegetable and burden to someone, she called her doctor to inquire as to just exactly where the heart would be. "On a woman," the doctor said, "your heart would be just below your left breast." Later that night, Mildred was admitted to the hospital with a gunshot wound to her knee. A couple of women were playing golf one sunny Saturday morning. The first of the twosome teed off and watched in horror as her ball headed directly toward a foursome of men playing the next hole. Indeed, the ball hit one of the men, and he immediately clasped his hands together at his crotch, fell to the ground, and proceeded to roll around in evident agony. The woman rushed down to the man and immediately began to apologize. Police explained that she was a physical therapist. "Please allow me to help. I'm a physical therapist, and I know I could relieve your pain if you'd allow me," she told him earnestly. "Oh, no, I'll be all right. I'll be fine in a few minutes," he replied breathlessly as he remained in the fetal position, still clasping his hands together at his crotch. But she persisted, and he finally allowed her to help him. She gently took his hands away and laid them to the side. She loosened his pants, and she put her hands inside. She began to massage him. She then asked him, "How does that feel?" To which he replied, "It feels great, but my thumb still hurts like hell." A child asked his father, "How were people born?" So his father said, "Adam and Eve made babies, then their babies became adults and made babies, and so on." The child then went to his mother, asked her the same question, and she told him, "We were monkeys then, we evolved to become like we are now." The child ran back to his father and said, "You lied to me." His father replied, "No, your mom was talking about her side of the family." A Texan goes to Toronto for a vacation. There he grabs a cab at the airport and says he's on his way to the Royal York Hotel. The cabbie heads downtown. On his way he passes Queen's Park. "What's that?" says the Texan. "Ooh, that's Queen's Park," says the cabbie. It's our provincial government. It's like your state government. Those buildings are almost 200 years old and they are quite big. Oh, we have buildings much older than that and at least twice as large, says the Texan. They continue along and past us Canadian Place. Holy cow, says the Texan. What's that? Why, that's First Canadian Place. It's the biggest office complex in the country, says the cabbie. It took almost 4 years to build. Really, says the Texan. Why in Houston they have buildings twice that big and built in less than half the time? They continue on the way, the cabbie a little miffed at the bragging, when they drive past the CN Tower. Now the Texan has his head out the window looking up at the 1850s tower and rotating restaurant at 1300. Holy crap, says the Texan. What in God's name is that? How long did it take to build that? The cabbie nonchalantly glances out the window and says, heck if I know, it wasn't there yesterday. An old country farmer with serious financial problems bought a mule from another old farmer for £100, who agreed to deliver the mule the next day. However, the next day he drove up and said, sorry, but I have some bad news, the mule is dead. Well then, just give me my money back. Can't do that. I went and spent it already. Okay then, just unload the mule. What are you going to do with a dead mule? I'm going to raffle him off. You can't raffle off a dead mule. Sure I can, I just won't tell anybody he's dead. A month later, the two met up and the farmer who sold the mule asked, whatever happened with that dead mule? I raffled him off just like I said I would. I sold 500 tickets at £2 apiece and made a profit of £898. Didn't anyone complain? Asked the farmer who sold the mule. The farmer replied, just the guy who won, so I gave him his £2 back. A minister waited in line to have his car filled with petrol just before a long holiday weekend. The attendant worked quickly, but there were many cars ahead of him in front of the service station. Finally, the attendant motioned him toward a vacant pump. Reverend, said the young man, sorry about the delay. It seems as if everyone waits until the last minute to get ready for a long trip. The minister chuckled. I know what you mean. It's the same in my line of work. A woman accompanied her husband to the doctor's office. After his checkup, the doctor called the wife into his office alone. He said, your husband is suffering from a very severe disease, combined with horrible stress. If you don't do the following, your husband will surely die. Each morning, fix him a healthy breakfast. Be pleasant and make sure he is in a good mood. For lunch, make him a nutritious meal. For dinner, prepare an especially nice meal for him. Don't burden him with chores as he probably had a hard day. Don't discuss your problems with him. It will only make his stress worse. And most importantly, you should satisfy his every whim sexually several times a week. If you can do this for the next 10 months to a year, I think your husband will regain his health completely. On the way home, the husband asked his wife, what did the doctor say? She replied, you're going to die. A henpecked husband was advised by a psychiatrist to assert himself. You don't have to let your wife bully you, he said. Go home and show her you're the boss. The husband decided to take the doctor's advice. He went home, slammed the door, saw his wife and growled, from now on you're taking orders from me. I want my supper right now, and after you get it on the table, go upstairs and lay out my clothes. Tonight I am going out with the boys. You are going to stay at home where you belong. Another thing, you know who is going to tie my bow tie. I certainly do, said his wife calmly, an undertaker.